Good morning. Happy Friday. We continue to march towards the holidays. And if your life is anything like my life, things are very crazy. There are lots of events, lots of requests for things, which is good. That's the business we're in. For that reason, today's episode is going to be a little shorter, as I know time is at a premium. And if you've decided to jump on and spend even just a few moments today looking at our topic, which is a catering scorecard, I appreciate you for it and I thank you. So I'm going to respect that. I'm going to honor that. I'm going to give you what you need. I'm going to let you get back to selling. Today we are having our traditional coffee. I just go for it now, and it's just straight heavy cream with coffee. I really enjoy a nice creamy coffee. It might be more cream than coffee, but it's going to do the trick this morning. I'm going to give it just a moment here, and then we'll press forward. All right. So what is Cater Caffeine? This started 11 months ago, and it really is just a journey of catering sales and marketing and some operations. And how do you take all these things we're tasked with doing and organize them in a way where you can be strategic and you can be consistent? Early in my career, I was given a catering menu. I was wished luck. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a strategy. I was doing all these really good things, but I didn't have a way to measure them because I was doing them all very wildly and very inconsistently. And I realized as I went further in my sales management career that the more I could organize this, the more I could communicate what I'm doing, the more I could show others the steps I was taking to get to where I was getting, that I wasn't just being lucky, that didn't just happen upon this $10,000 order, that I did work and I did my call, I did my follow-up call, I landed the customer, I did my first time order contact. It's a year later, so I reached out for a prior year order, and then they knew somebody else, and that's how, like, it's very systematic, it's very strategic. And that's what I believe Cater Caffeine is. It's this time to come together and just talk about this amazing space we're in, this amazing job we get to do, which is grueling at times. We get to help people. We get to help people during good times when they're celebrating and they're recognizing milestones. We also get to support them through times of loss and through pain and through disappointment sometimes. I've had parties where people didn't get into a college, but they still wanted to celebrate all the work that person did. They're still going to another college, but it's kind of weird, but it was amazing. And I appreciate being a part of that. So Cater Caffeine, really just a time to come together to look at catering from a sales, marketing, operations perspective and to be strategic about it. So who am I? This is my least favorite slide. But once again, if you're tuning in for the first time, I want you to understand my background, what I've done, and that not everything that I've done might apply to what you're doing. I've never done fine dining catering, which you'll see here in a moment with the list of companies I've worked with. So maybe some of the things that I do may not directly apply to what you're doing, but maybe you can pick some things that make sense. Whereas maybe my career mirrors yours 100%, and you can take my playbook and you can run with it, which is awesome. I encourage you to do that. My career started a long, long time ago at Noah's Bagels. I was there for 8 years, started off as a delivery driver. 6 months into that, I was promoted to a sales manager. I had just 6 stores in the San Francisco Bay Area. One of the stores I had was a store that I was working in, which was kind of wild to go from here to jump up here. And there was a coordinator that was supporting me, and then I was their boss overnight, which was a little hard to navigate, but we got through it. After 8 years there, I moved over to Le Boulanger, which was a wonderful family owned and operated company here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Not La Boulange, which was bought by Starbucks, different concept. Le Boulanger did amazing work both in the local community, but they also worked with the 49ers and the San Jose Sharks and the Sacramento Kings. And I got to oversee a partnership with the 49ers, which was amazing. I got to see Taylor Swift in concert and have VIP tickets and free food. That's a whole other story. I started there as a director of catering, was promoted to a senior director based off the work I did in the first couple of years. And then going into my third year, they realized with what I had done for catering, they also needed help with wholesale. I was given a VP title. I was asked to oversee wholesale and a division that was strong but declining. in just 3 months, I was able to bring on enough new accounts where they had positive growth. And it was this amazing time. And somewhere we built a tree on one of the walls where every time we landed a new account, we put an apple up there. And it was silly, but they filled that tree with apples in just 90 days. And it was this very visual representation of the work we did, which is interesting because we're going to talk about a scorecard today, which is a very visual representation of the work we're doing every single week. See, there's a strategy here. I was with Le Boulanger for about 5 years. They realized that they could sell the company based off of the work we did. So unfortunately, probably one of my favorite jobs in my career, I was able to transition over to Sons. Started off as a director of catering. You're starting to see a pattern here. Then the pandemic hit. I was just there for maybe 5 months, 6 months before that happened. And things got weird. We went from full service catering to setting up pop-up tents in parking lots to delivering to people's homes. I think we were selling toilet paper at one point because people couldn't get things at the grocery store. Lockdown was occurring. I remember being on the freeway with literally nobody else in the Bay Area. I have videos walking around downtown San Francisco where there was no one else on the street. Crazy times. We got through that. We were able to get back into the normal catering. And after a little bit of time there, maybe 4 years, I made my way over to Talkalicious, where I currently am the VP of sales, overseeing a couple $1 million worth of catering. I have a team of 40. We do full service catering. We do drop off catering. We do private dining at the restaurant for groups of 20 up to 100. A lot of fun selling hundreds of thousands of tacos and taking names. But I have a really good team. Through all that, I did start my own catering company early on in my life before I worked at Noah's. And I learned a lot about how not to run your own company, but we also found a lot of success. My first event, I took the deposit that they gave me and I went and bought equipment because I had zero equipment. And then when they paid me for the rest of the event, I took that check and cashed it. And then I paid the people that worked for me because I didn't have the money to pay them. And through event after event after event, we bought a grill when we needed it. We bought this when we needed it. It was just this very grindy way to get through college and using those resources to pay for my degree. And that experience plus my degree ultimately led to my first sales manager job. I have an award from the National Restaurant Association, which I proudly display behind me for leadership, both for supporting those in the space, because I'm a big believer in giving others opportunities that I wish I had going early through my career, but also through a lot of work I do in the community. I volunteer a ton with Nifty and Career Village and others, but I also help direct funds through the Talkalicious School Project and some of my personal resources to local schools in San Francisco. And the fact that there are groups that went on field trips this last 6 months that built a community garden, they were able to get computers for their teams. I cherish that. And we can do so much with what we have in the industry. I'm going to skip away from the slide. I am Jerome Dees Jr., and I'm very excited to be here with you. If you point your phone at this link, you will get a sample sales playbook that will allow you to see all the amazing things that we've talked about this year. I'm actually going to transition over to that, and I'll go back to that link in a moment if that was too fast for you. When you come here, you are going to have a list of all the resources that we have discussed this year. My sincere hope is that you take this, you can drop it into AI if you want to, tell it to replace your name with instances of anything else that I have in here. You can have it added to, subtracted from, but really this is an opportunity to look at all of the sessions we've done and to take what you need to be successful. We're going to discuss the scorecard today. I can even add a little new emoji in there so that you all know that's new. And then we did discuss the 2026 sales plan. We've talked about having a daily checklist. I live by my daily checklist. I literally check it off every single day. Have credit cards been processed? Have we double checked that all of the deliveries were accounted for? Do we know that our third parties are all apples to apples? Because some days we can have upwards of 10 easy cater orders and it can be easy to miss something there. So every single morning, every single afternoon, we have systems of double checks so that we don't miss anything. We talked about our sales activities, and I'll go through that recap in a moment. We talked about contact types. What can you do during the slow times? I had a stretch a few months ago where catering just disappeared. We were doing all the same things, we were contacting the same customers, but things just slowed down. So how do you take it to that next level? How do you get those customers back? We talked through that. If you have this saved as a Google Sheet that just your, or Google Doc rather, that just your team has access to, you can have links and passwords and projects you're working on. If you do secret shops or competitive analysis, you can have all that in one place. I'll reemphasize this later, but part of your job is to have answers for questions before they come up, and having all this information in one place. If you're training a new sales manager, if you're going on a sabbatical and someone needs to step in for you, whatever the case, all this information is there to be shared. Right. Let's see here. All right, let's do a quick recap of the sessions that we've had so far. As I shared, we talked about the contact types and the sales playbook. We went through the ideal customer profile and who that is, what they look like. Not to say that you won't work with people that aren't that ideal customer profile. In my ideal customer profile, nowhere do we have that we want to target people who have just lost others and to do receptions or to do funerals, but they come up. We're not going to say no. We handle them as respectfully as possible, but I'm not out at the funeral homes passing out menus and looking for people. There are some catering companies that have partnered with mortuaries, and that's a core part of their business. For me, that's not something that we're looking for because our table setups are festive and colorful, and typically our people bring a lot of energy, and I want to be able to support that with events that match that. So who's your ideal customer profile? We went through that process of understanding that. We talked about having dedicated time to selling. You have to block things on your calendar, or if you are in a position of leadership for your organization, you have to allow your team time to block their calendar. And if they tell you every Wednesday they're going to block their calendar for a couple hours and they're going to make sales calls, please don't schedule time or meetings or ask them to talk during that time. Let them be successful with what they do. Let them find the timing that makes sense. Let them sell for your organization. We talked about competitive research, doing secret shops on other brands. Do you know what your competition charges for delivery? Do you know if they have service fees? Do they charge for plates and napkins and other things? Then you can be strategic. Oh, I heard you might order with Bodine. Sometimes we order food from Bodine. I get it, but they don't do X, Y, Z. And it's not talking bad about other brands because you never know where you're going to end up. You might be applying for a job with Bodine in 6 months, so be respectful. But it is okay to state facts. Hey, our delivery fee, yes, it's a little more expensive, but our box lunches are $1.50 per box lunch cheaper. So if you're ordering for more than 10 people, you actually come out ahead with us. That's not factually true, but just as an example. So you need to do competitive analysis and make sure that you're doing those secret shops, even if you're just requesting a quote from time to time. But if your company brings in food for lunch, bring in food from one of your competitors and see what they have to offer. We talked about the sales process and how you should go about approaching customers. We talked about first-time order contacts, which is an opportunity to reach out to people after their first order, to ask them very strategic questions, to understand their needs, and to position yourself to support them. I've had first-time order calls where someone will say, oh, we don't order that often. It's every 6 months. Maybe we'll try to keep you in mind. So 5 months later, I set a reminder and I reach out. Hey, I know you need food in a few weeks. I can copy your last order. I just need the date and the time. And people will be surprised. Oh my gosh, how did you know? This is perfect timing. That would make my life easy. Go ahead and copy the order. In some cases, it's $2,000 because you set a reminder and you sent an email. I would rather do that all day long than to do cold contacts. You still need to do cold calls. There is a place for them. But if you can set yourself up to hit your targets just with the people that are already in the system, how easy would your life be? We discussed managing slower times and some of the things that you can do, some of the lists that you can pull, some of the targeted customer contacts you can make. We want to make sure that we're aware of who those people are. So some of that is doing work during the slower times to build those lists out so you have them, but making sure that you know where to go mine for that gold when the gold is needed most. We went over our quarter 4 sales plan at the end of quarter 3 just to help us get back into it. This was during a time where it was a little slower for me. So part of that planning was, what do I do to get things going again? And thankfully, as I sit here with still 2 whole weeks left in period 12, we've already exceeded our target and we're adding to that target every single minute. I can see an order popped up as we're doing this session. You want to put yourself in a position where it's not stressful selling, because I've had times, right? The pressure's on and you have to sell. And as sales professionals, sometimes our job might be on the line if we're not hitting those targets. Selling like that is not fun for me. I want to be on the other side where everybody's happy. People are excited to see me when I go to stores. Leadership is happy because targets are being hit. That selling for me has been much easier. We briefly discussed leadership. This is a session I'll probably leave January with that I put together that I didn't get to make that session because of some family things. But just, what do you bring to the table as a leader? Are you providing what you wish you had early in your career? Because sometimes I had leaders who'd get us on a call on Friday morning and get us excited for the next week and make us feel like we made the right decision with our career. And then I had leaders that would make my hand shake when they would call, and it almost felt like they had never been given true support, so they didn't know how to give it. I used to think maybe this is just how that person is, but I don't think that was the case. I think they just didn't have those tools in their toolbox. And in the position you're in, you have the opportunity to either give leadership or to get the tools to be able to give that leadership. I think some leaders are born the way they are and they're larger than life and they can get out there and do it. For me, I've had to develop my leadership style along the way. It's funny, when I left one job, I remember thinking, I never want to be what that leader was. I almost want to be the opposite of what they are. And I made a list of things that they didn't do or things that they didn't seem capable of. And I started trying to do those things. And it wasn't always easy. It wasn't always clean. But during my time at that job, I did so many really cool things that people still talk about today. And that's the type of leader that you can be, the impact you can have on people's lives, that you can be proud that you took drivers and turned them into coordinators, or you turned cashiers into sales managers. And when someone asked me about why do I think I've been successful, how do I measure my success in this space? And it really was going back to those individuals and being able to say, this person is now doing this. This person is now leading catering for this organization. They start off as a driver, and being able to give that foundation, those resources. You can hear the emotion in my voice. That's everything for me. And we talked about planning for 2026. There's a really good video from last time. I highly encourage you to go back and watch it. And that is a recap of what we've done with the last 11 months. So, a scorecard. Why do they matter? As I shared with the tree example, which was a scorecard in a sense, we built this really cool tree, and I wish I had the picture of it. I didn't have access to it, although I may post it on LinkedIn later or on Cater Link, maybe both. We cut out this tree of paper, we put it up on a wall, and the idea was every time someone landed a new account, they were going to put up an apple. And I think each apple meant something. We had gold apples, which were large accounts. We had red and green apples, which meant different things. And the idea was we wanted to supercharge what was going on, but we also wanted leadership to see this. It was on my office, which was a corner office, and the corner my office sat on, you had to walk around it to get to the rest of the office. And if you were coming from the kitchen, you had to stare this tree in the eye as you walked down the hall. And of course, it was a little weird the first few days because there wasn't anything on it, but then a few apples popped up, and then a few more apples popped up. And the tree got so full that there was no more room for apples. And what that said to the leadership team, because I told them what we were doing, we explained what the process was. Every single time I had my weekly meeting, they're like, oh my gosh, like, you guys are really killing it. I see all the work you're doing. You can send emails, you can communicate things verbally, but having something that's very visual, something that people can see and right away say, oh my gosh, I see that you guys are doing better than you were last year, or that you're working towards what you said you were going to do, I think that's very important. So that is why we put a scorecard in place, and that is why we're going to spend a few minutes talking about it. Here is a link to the scorecard. Feel free to pull this up, and I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen here for a moment because I want to pull this up with you, and we're going to talk through this. And if that was too quick, we can take our link here, drop that in there. All right. So this is our catering scorecard. It looks a little weird, but we're going to walk through what you can do with this and how everything will populate. I've done all the work for you, so you don't have to do any formulas or any coding. You literally just have to drop data in here, and it's going to do all this work for you. What's important for you is the data tab. This is where you're going to plug in information. The first piece of information that I think you want to track is your year-over-year sales. So as you get into week 1 of 2026, you're going to come in and you'll plug in your week 1 sales from last year, your week 1 sales from what will be this year. Back on the dashboard, that's going to populate under sales growth. Once again, it's going to show your 2025 sales, your 2026 sales. If you're good with Google Sheets, you can actually go in and change the colors on these. So if you have a week where 2026 is up, which I hope more of your weeks than not will be, you can make that bar green and the other bar red. Vice versa, if you have a week that was tougher or you ran over a huge order you weren't going to get back, you can make the tab or the chart, you can invert the colors so that people can see, okay, we were down. Is there an explanation why? There is. Here's why we're down. Here's where we're trending for next week. We're going to get it back. The next thing that I find important to track is your order count year over year. So once again, orders for 2025, orders for 2026, and then back on the dashboard, it's going to show you that order growth. And as people see this for the first few times, they're going to be able to come in and they're going to know, okay, right bar, top bar, that means last year, bottom bar. They'll be able to start visualizing what this looks like. You can print this out and hand it out at meetings. You can take a screen grab of it and you can paste it into an email. There's a few different ways that you can use this. From there, we have large orders for 2025 and we have large orders for 2026. You can define a large order by any definition you want to. So for you, a large order is $1,000 or more. Just open up your report from last week, look at how many large orders you had, do the same thing for last year. I highly recommend that you go through for a whole quarter. So for me, as I'm filling out my scorecard, I'm going to plug in the data for weeks 1 through 13 for the first quarter of next year. And then as I have that data for those weeks, I'm going to come in and populate it. So you don't always have to go back and pull a report and then plug in what's going on this year. You should have all that information plugged in. And if you have a slow week the first week of January like I do, and you don't take vacation, because I've always thought it was weird to not get paid during a slow time, you can come in and populate all that information. And once again, ChatGPT, some sort of AI, if you have a report for a full year, drop it in there. Let it know what you're looking for, and it's going to give you all this data back pretty easily. So whatever you define a large order as, go ahead and plug those in, and it's going to show you if you had more large orders this year than last year. I skipped over this average order size, which is on the right-hand side. That is going to automatically populate for you based off of a combination of your sales and your order counts. So as long as you have those two pieces of information, it will figure out your average order size for you, and it'll populate that there. Another thing that I think is important to track is your positive guest experiences and your negative guest experiences. For those of us that used Monkey Media back in the day, the code reds and code greens, I still use that terminology. A code red is something that happened where we had to do a discount or a refund, or it impacted a customer enough where they communicated it. Positive experience, it's more than people just saying it was great, thanks. I look for someone to say, oh, your driver, Travis, was amazing. They set up, they made the event very, very memorable. Thank you so much. Or, hey, we had a full service event and your 2 servers were phenomenal. Anytime it goes just beyond thank you, it was good, we'll put that in there. And then once again, based on your order count versus how many of those you plug in, it's going to give you a percentage. These are skewed a little bit, but for success rate, we're looking at a percentage. For error rate, we're looking at a very specific percentage. And then you can have targets for each. I love to have a code green percentage that's higher than 10%. I think 1 in 10 people should have felt great about what we did and have enough to be able to reach out to us. Whereas with the error rates or the code reds, I really look for that to be less than 3%. 3% seems high, but on doing 100 orders, I expect that we're going to be late to something. We're probably going to miss something, regardless of all the checklists and the double checks we have. We are humans. Sometimes someone gets in late to the kitchen and an order gets out late. Sometimes there's traffic. We had one driver who literally ended up sitting on a freeway for 2 hours on the way back from a delivery because someone got out of their car and threatened to jump off the overpass. That's not the driver's fault, but it's still an adverse impact on the customer. So we track those and we try to keep things to a minimum. And the more you get into meetings and the more you share this information, the more people will start understanding what you're looking for. Once you populate that information back here, and if you'd like to use the scorecard as it sits, you'll come in, you'll do file, you'll make a copy, you'll save this to your individual drive because this should not let you edit because it is view only. And from there, you can change to an extent some of how this works. If you mess around with it too much, you might break some of the coding. Once you get all the data in there, you'll come back to your first tab. And if you select which week you're on, it will go to that week and it will update those charts. So in this case, week 15, just to make sure this is all working. How embarrassing would it be if it wasn't? We'll say in this case, we had more orders there. And then for large orders, we'll do 5 last year, we'll do 8 this year. We're going to say we had 10 positive experiences against 16 orders. And we're going to say that we just had 1 negative experience. And like magic, because you have week 15 selected, there's actually data now. All those charts will update for you. And you can see that we were in good shape. I did this in a way where if you just click anywhere in the white, it's going to select that whole area because I merged all those cells for you. From there, you can hit Control P. That's going to take you to your print screen. From there, typically the scale is going to be 100%. I am going to say I want selected cells only. It's just going to be that tab that we had. And then I'm going to go to Fit to Page. And at that point, I could print this off. If I wanted to, I could go back and I could type some things under here. If I wanted to add some notes, I think notes are amazing. You can add up here, you can do a title for this. So you can put week 15 catering results. There's a lot of fun things you can play with this. I nerd out on this stuff if you can't tell. So this is our scorecard. I think it is very, very, very important to have a visual representation of how your department's doing. I found early in my career, and it was truly one of my keys to success, that if I had answers for questions before they were asked, I would be in good shape. And I saw a trend. I would go into a meeting, they'd ask me about my sales growth. Easy, here's the sales growth. And they started to ask about the order growth because they wanted to make sure that we were having healthy growth. If your growth in your order counts is declining, but your sales are going up, that can be okay for a short while, but at some point that's going to pick up or catch up. They wanted to know how the average order size was doing. If we raised prices, you would expect that your average order size was higher. But if it wasn't, did that mean those price increases impacted the order growth? Which is why I have these two next to each other, because, okay, average order size, oh, well, it doesn't really look like we got what we needed. Okay, let's go to order growth. Oh, well, yeah, it looks like we have some declining order growth. All this plays into each other. For the large orders, it is tough depending on the size of your department. I've had departments where we oversaw $10,000 to $15,000 a week in catering. You have just $3,000 orders that don't repeat. That is a huge chunk of what you did. you're probably going to have a down week. Whereas if you had no large orders last year and you have 5 this year and you don't have sales growth, what happened? Something probably went sideways. Customer feedback is so important. If you're churning in new customers, but you're messing up with customers, it doesn't really go your way. You need to make sure that you're taking really good care of the customers that are using you. And then the success rate, of course, making sure that things are what they need to be. And this is just a percentage representation of this because I like to see it as a percentage. You can add to this. Maybe you want to track new customers, and a lot of organizations do. How many new customers did we have last week? Some organizations build that into your comp plan or your bonus plan. We expect you over a quarter to bring in 25 new customers. So you can track that on here by adding a new box, by adjusting the data tab. You can track your attrition rate. How many people that were ordering last year aren't ordering this year? Depending on the level of data that you have, lots of things that you can do with the scorecard. I will share the link to this on Cater Link as the recap of the session goes up. I highly encourage you going into 2026 if you don't have a scorecard. As you saw, we're not looking for a lot here. If you can plug in all of your information from 2025, you're looking for 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of information each week. And on Monday morning, this is stuff you should be looking at anyway. So why not plug it into this sheet? If you get really fancy, you can save charts and you can publish them. There's lots of things to where I wish I could share it, but there's some confidential information in there. We have a weekly leadership meeting doc that we all contribute to. I have my chart embedded in that doc. And when we create a new tab and we're adding stuff for next week, I just have to hit refresh and all that information just populates. So once again, do this work up front so you don't have to keep doing work during the year, add some data, move on with your existence. Bear with me 1 second. There we are. All right, so as I shared, lots of cool things that you can track with this, from your sales growth to your order growth, average order sizes. If you want to do new customers, if you want to do the attrition rates, there are things that will come onto my scorecard because we need to track them. Oh my gosh, we're seeing double-digit customer decline. What can we do about that? Let's throw it on the scorecard. Let's make it visual for the next 6 weeks until we get back to where we need to be. So there are things that you can swap in and swap out. If you want help making a custom scorecard as part of my consulting business, I do help with that type of work. Typically, I can have one of these built out for you in less than a day. I do have my email address on the sales playbook, so feel free to go there, email me, message me through Cater Link. Happy to help. Although there are things that you think are important when it comes to your scorecard, there may be things that your organization finds more important, or there may be information on there that's nice to have, but it's not necessary. What I'm going to encourage you to do, talk to people on your team. Talk to your sales managers if you're a leader in your business. What information is important? What information would you like to see each week? What information is helpful to you? They may not have anything. They may have a couple things. You don't know until you ask. Ask your leadership team, what do you want to see on a weekly basis? If I can give you a snapshot of what the business is, where we are, how we're doing, what would you like to see on the scorecard? Your CFO is going to have a very specific set of data they want to see, where your COO, your CEO, may have different data sets that they care about. And bringing that all together, you might have 9 charts on this thing, and that's okay because it's just 9 pieces of information you need. And most of this you should have answers to. So as you walk into this meeting, you have the data, you have the sheets you can pop open if you need it. You probably have a report you pulled. Maybe you add that as a tab so you have that raw data available. Be prepared for what comes your way. Be ready to give those answers. Once again, as a salesperson, as much as it would be nice just to sell externally and to bring customers in, a big part of your job, part of the job I did not understand early on because I ruffled a lot of feathers, is that you're also selling internally. And sometimes those internal customers are going to have a bigger impact on your career than some of the external ones. It was a hard thing for me to understand early in my career, and something I'm glad I understood because I spent 8 years as a sales manager, and I've shared pretty honestly that I went for promotion after promotion after promotion, never really got the nod. And then as I fixed my mentality, as I developed myself, I got my master's degree, I started volunteering in the community and doing workshops and built up my confidence with presenting. And I was able to package all that and to get a director title. And once I got that director title, I went from a director to a VP of sales in 4 years. I was the same person, but I started doing some of this stuff. I did the sales plan and I shared it with the leadership team. I had the scorecard and I would post this stuff up on the wall. And I had these very visual representations of what we were doing and how things were going. And sometimes things didn't go our way, but I was honest and transparent about that as well, so that they knew if I was sharing this stuff that didn't make me look good, that they could trust the other data as well. Figure out what's important to those around you, pretty it up, share it with them, give them the information to be able to do their jobs, make your life easy, make their lives easy. And I've said it a couple times, and I truly stand behind it. Answer questions before they are asked. Make sure that you have data available and actionable data that people can actually use. I also don't love repeating myself. It's one of the things that will really grind my gears, that if I share something with someone and then I share it again and then they're like, hey, can you give this information to me? I didn't get it. I don't know what it is about repeating myself. But I try to make sure that I'm answering those questions. I love when I go to my team and I'm like, hey, I've got a few things. And they're like, hey, before you start, here's some stuff for this week. Here's this, here's this. We also have this, here's this. Does that answer your question? And I can just go about my day. It's an amazing world where that happens. So please, through all this, the thread, make sure you're prepared with good data so that you can answer those questions. As we round out our last session of the year, a little sad to think about how fast this year went, but also realizing how long of a year this was. This definitely was a terrific year. I remember starting January, February, we were killing it with sales, huge year over year sales. And then as we got into the whole tariff thing as a Mexican food restaurant, I remember the conversations with people where people were literally screaming at me because we raised the price of guacamole and a couple other things that were avocado heavy. And they're like, well, you don't pay the tariffs and you're not even being charged, and having to explain to people that the sheet was the sheet, and we were getting a sheet from our produce company that incorporated what those numbers were, and we were being asked to pay those numbers so that the produce company could pay those numbers. And just through all the crazy misinformation and misunderstanding, we took a hit, and it felt like it stalled things out. I know some of my colleagues working for other organizations still had fantastic years through all this. They had a real impact here in the Bay Area, specifically for our team, and working through that and bouncing back, and then other stuff happening. It was just a wild year. But through all that, yes, you may have come up short in some areas. Thankfully, we're finishing the year very strong, and I think there's a $28,000 event on Wednesday next week that is going to be a full day event. I'm going to have drivers in multiple locations. Take time to think through all the amazing things that you did this year. If you're a sales manager, if you're a leader, if you're an owner, especially if your catering sales are up, please make sure to take a moment to just thank your team. Buy them lunch, send them a card. I know we can't always, like, I would love to do something for everybody on my team, but out of my pocket, doing a $50 gift card for 40 people plus, like, that can be costly. But do something if you're able. At the very least, in January, when things are slow and maybe your private space is available, offer to buy them lunch, bring them in, show some appreciation, tie it into a meeting where you're launching the new year and talking through all the things they did. Also, make sure that you're calling out specific instances of things going well. I have Slack for my team because everybody was doing text messages and it was overwhelming. And on that Slack channel, every time someone mentioned someone's name, just yesterday, I had two servers that had one of the most demanding customers I've worked with this year. It was grueling getting this order put together. And she put them through the paces at the event, but sent me a glowing email about how well the two servers did. And they really made the event feel welcoming and warm, and they were on top of it. I love hearing stuff like that, but they need to hear that as well. Because there are surely times where I'm going to say, hey, you guys missed the mark here. But I call out so many of those good things that I think it's understood that, hey, he wants us to develop. He wants the best for us. We missed the mark. Let's figure it out. 2025, take a few moments to think through the year. Share a quick recap with your organization. I'm going to try to figure out how many tacos we sold this year. Our data is a little weird because we work with some third parties and we just put subtotals instead of actual menu items. So there's going to be some inference there. There's going to be a margin of error. But I think it'll be fun to be able to go, and I'm hopeful, say, hey, we sold 1.5 million tacos this year. Have some fun with it, but make sure you're taking that time to reflect on 2025, all the things you did, all the things your team did, and then use that. If you don't have your sales plan fully fleshed out, and I taught y'all how to make a sales plan last session, and I'm still working on mine, so it's okay if it's not completely done. But take an opportunity. Hey, these 6 things went really well. Let's make sure we keep doing those. Oh, this thing here, this thing didn't work. So, well, maybe we shouldn't focus on that in 2026, or maybe it's a cornerstone of what we do and we need to throw more marketing, more support at it. The more you look at these things, the more you can figure out where you want to go next. I want to thank everybody who joined for an episode of Cater Caffeine this year. Looks like we do have a couple questions. So looking back at the Cater Caffeine conversation from this year, what lessons do you think catering professionals underestimate most? Whew. That is a really good question. I know personally I get very frustrated by when things don't go well. And I've been working personally, even after almost 20 years in this industry, looking at what we could have done different, looking at what we could have done better. Still, sometimes there's a lot of finger pointing and, oh, it was their fault, oh, it was our fault, oh, it was the operations team versus the sales team. And I think just remembering that you're all one organization. The customer doesn't see chef versus driver versus cook versus sales manager. Like you're all together. And I think remembering that and having that united front, for me, it's one of the things that I still sometimes fall into that trap of, oh, well, what doesn't really matter what happened. What can we do differently going forward? Everybody's going to make a mistake. I made a mistake this week. Luckily, one of my team caught it, which I appreciate. But remembering that it's look at it, adjust. What can we do different? And just taking those small pivots. I don't think we need to dwell so much on things. And I think sometimes we still dwell too much. Let's see here. When you talk about internal customers, how should sales and catering leaders think differently about the relationship with operations drivers in the kitchen? Yeah, my goal is to treat the people I work with better than I treat my customers. And I know that seems silly and that seems inverse because the customer is always right and the customer is king. But how can I expect a driver who I'm yelling at, who I'm belittling, who I don't show support to go out and give that A plus customer service? I just had a conversation a couple weeks ago on one of my calls because I got all my drivers together. We've had a lot of changes this year and things look different than they did earlier in the year. We've had some reshuffling. And through all that, there's been stress. There's been a little bit of anxiety. And I told people, if you want to be here, I have your back. I'm going to show you support. I have servers that I've done recommendations for as they're going to grad school or recommendations for other jobs while they're still working here. I'm never going to stand in someone's way. And I think that's the type of leader we should be. We don't want people to go. But if someone can find a better opportunity, why wouldn't you want them to grow and develop? Maybe they end up somewhere where they order from you one day. How amazing would that be? I think you need to look at the people working with you, not for you, with you, and treat them with the highest level of respect. Everybody here that comes into work has a personal life and things that are going on at home and stresses that you know nothing about. You have an opportunity to be one of the better parts of their day. The please, the thank you, the acknowledging them. Every time I go into the kitchen, I yell thank you to the team. And I'm sure they think I'm crazy, but I never want someone to look at me and be like, oh my gosh, we're working so hard. We don't even know what that guy does. I want them to feel that appreciation. So really look at those people that are working with you, regardless of who they are, as your customer, and treat them as such. And we've had days where I've asked for more from the team in the kitchen than I think I should. And they were able to get it cranked out. Sometimes same day orders that make no sense that they got done, that they get done. And I cherish that and I show the appreciation for that. All right, let's see here. What are the most common blind spots you see when people look at year over year catering performance without a scorecard? Yeah, I think data. I don't love looking at P&Ls. It is just a long amount of data, and I kind of get it. But for me, I have a very visual brain. And if you show me a chart and this is here and this is here, I know we're good, as opposed to having to figure out, okay, these six categories and this. I think depending on who you're working with, you might have people that are data driven and they can look at that data and in their mind it paints a picture. I think that painting that picture for people is very helpful. So I year over year sales, easy, order counts, easy, but I think getting into some of that deeper data, the average order value, yes, people can figure that out in their head, but I think people are overtaxed right now. I think people are overworked. I think we're doing more than we ever have in our roles. And I think it's more just making that data very accessible and easy to understand. And with that scorecard and the visual aspect of it, I think it just creates a very nice picture that people don't have to create in their heads. It's one of the activities I used to do. I would describe something and I would have people write out what they thought I was describing, and people would show me two different things. So people can infer and extract what you think you're saying, or you can show them exactly what you mean. Doesn't mean they may not interpret those graphs differently, but I think having that visual is very helpful. See, I think we might have one more here. All right, there we go. As you look ahead to 2026, what's one habit or discipline catering professionals should commit to now that will make the biggest difference a year from today? As simple as it sounds, the years that I've been successful, I can look back at my calendar and see that I truly committed to blocking time for my sales efforts and to sticking with it. And every organization that I've worked with where I've done consulting, I'm building out a sales department, I'm building out a catering department that works. One of those organizations where one of my good buddy works now, I said it multiple times. I put in the playbook I developed for them. You have to let your team block off time and you have to respect it. If you know that your sales manager every Monday afternoon is doing prior order calls from 1 to 4 p.m., it is disrespectful for you to schedule a meeting during that time. Now, there are things that pop up that are very important, but it can't be every week. It can't be, oh, I forgot. As a sales professional, you have to protect your sales time. It seems silly, but let's just assume you miss 1 hour a week of sales time. That's 48 hours by the end of the year. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a lot. That's a whole work week plus that you're missing in sales activities. And depending on how many people you're contacting, let's say you're contacting 10 people an hour, which is realistic, it's 4,800 people. Depending on your close rate or your success rate, depending on how you look at that, multiply that out by your average order value, you literally could be talking tens of thousands of dollars because of 1 hour that wasn't actually committed to. It's easy to move the cold contacts off your calendar sometimes. It's easy to say, oh, well, the first time orders, maybe I don't need to call them this time. But contacting those people, it matters. And I think if you could look at my calendar right now for weeks on end, because I have prior year order contacts and I have repeats weekly, except for holiday weeks, and come hell or high water, I turn stuff off and I focus on that. There's not much that's going to come up that's that crucial. I've worked with sales managers who are so nervous about missing an email, or if I don't get, you're going to be okay for a couple hours, especially if your entire team knows it. If you're not a team of one, other people can jump in at times. Protect your calendar, protect your sales activities through all the other stuff that you may do. And I've done a lot of different things for organizations that were outside of my job description, trying to be helpful. But then at the end of that quarter, I came up slightly short on my sales activities, and all that other stuff didn't matter. If you are a sales professional, the very first thing that you need to make sure that you're maintaining are your sales. You're going to do that by protecting your time and protecting your calendar. With that, my friends, I hope that you enjoyed the rest of this year. Have a great holiday season. Once again, connect with me through Cater. You can email me if you need help with a custom scorecard. I hope you have a great day. Hope your coffee is strong, and I will see you in the new year.